The world shrank to a blinding point of light as my engine died. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the noise. My plane spiraled down, a metal coffin aimed at the heart of the Sahara. The impact was violent. I was thrown against my harness, the world a blur of sand and sky. When I came to, the silence was absolute. A living thing, vast and empty. I was utterly alone. The sun began its merciless climb. My survival clock started ticking. Water was my new god, and I had precious little of it. The wreckage of my plane was a monument to my failure. I checked my supplies, a few days if I was careful. Every shadow seemed to move. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. The desert was not empty. I felt it in my bones. It was watching me, waiting. My mind, strained by the crash, started playing tricks. Was that movement on the horizon, or just heat dancing on the dunes? I had to fix the engine, an impossible task. My hands trembled as I worked, the metal burning my skin. The silence amplified every sound, the scrape of my wrench, the frantic beat of my heart. The desert held its breath. I was a trespasser here, an anomaly, and I sensed something was coming for me. The first night was the worst. The temperature plummeted, darkness smothered the stars. I huddled in the broken cockpit, a ghost in a metal shell. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. Every rustle in the sand sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I was stranded, facing a slow, certain death. But as the sun's first rays bled across the horizon, I realized I was not afraid of dying. I was afraid of what I might find before I did. On the third day, when thirst was a fire in my throat, I heard it, a voice. "If you please, draw me a sheep." I spun around. There a child stood, golden hair, strange regal clothes, utterly out of place. He showed no fear, only serious expectation. He was an impossibility. Was he a mirage, a hallucination? I blinked, but he remained, solid, real. He waited for his drawing, unconcerned with water or my crash. His request was so absurd it was terrifying, a crack in reality. Who was he? Where did he come from? My first attempts at drawing failed. "That's not a sheep, it's a ram," he said, calm but firm. "That one is too old." He examined each drawing with intense scrutiny, as if it held profound importance. His persistence was unnerving. In a place where survival was everything, he cared only for a simple sketch. Was I the mad one? Was his world the real one? Finally, in frustration, I drew a box. "The sheep you want is inside." His face lit up. "That's exactly the way I wanted it." He saw something I couldn't see. At that moment, I knew he was not from my world. He was something other, ancient, mysterious, hidden in the guise of a child. My fear of the desert was replaced by a new, deeper dread. I was no longer just fighting for my life. I was now a custodian of a secret I could not comprehend. The boy's presence changed everything. The desert was no longer empty. I was not alone, but I was more lost than ever. He told me of his journey, of a planet barely larger than himself, ruled by a king with no subjects. The king issued commands to the sun, but only when it was already time. He offered the prince a position as minister of justice, but there was no one to judge. The king's power was a hollow echo, his authority an illusion to keep loneliness at bay. The planet was a prison of protocol and pride. The prince saw not a ruler but a man terrified of his own irrelevance. The danger was not physical, but a subtle madness of solitude. The king's logic was a trap, a tempting offer for a lonely traveler. To accept would be to surrender to the madness of pretending. The prince felt the pull, but knew it was a lie. He had to leave. The king tried to stop him, making him an ambassador, a desperate attempt to hold on to his only subject. But the prince turned away, leaving the king alone on his throne, a ruler of nothing. The encounter left a mark. Authority without connection is a form of madness. It was a warning. As he told me this story, I looked at the vast, empty desert around me. I was on my own small, lonely planet, just like that king. The next planet was inhabited by a single, vain man. "Ah, an admirer is about to visit me," he cried, demanding applause. He was the only man on the planet, performing for an audience that never came. His world was a mirror. He could see nothing beyond himself. The prince clapped, as requested. The cycle repeated. Applause, salute, applause, salute. The man's need for admiration was a bottomless pit. The prince felt unease. The man was trapped, and to stay would be to become a living mirror. The threat was the danger of becoming an object for someone else's ego. The vain man saw the prince only as a source of applause. The planet was a vacuum that sucked away identity. Admiration given without reason was hollow, a poison. The prince escaped before the planet's toxic atmosphere suffocated him. He left the vain man still waiting for more applause, forever tipping his hat to an empty universe. The encounter taught the prince, a life lived for the approval of others is no life at all. As the prince recounted this tale, I looked at my broken plane. How much of what I did was for myself, and how much for admiration? The boy's stories were holding up a mirror to my own soul. The third planet was darker still, a drunkard surrounded by empty and full bottles. "What are you doing?" the prince asked. "I'm drinking," the man replied. "Why?" "To forget." "Forget what?" "That I am ashamed." "Ashamed of what?" "Of drinking." The man was caught in a terrifying loop, a snake eating its own tail. The prince was faced with a sorrow so profound it was paralyzing. The man was locked in a cage of his own making. The danger here was the contagion of despair, a powerful, dark gravity. The prince left the drunkard in his silent, circular torment. I wondered, was I any different, stuck in my own loop, each day of failure feeding the despair of the next? The next planet was the smallest, just a street lamp and a lamplighter. The prince arrived as the man lit the lamp, then extinguished it. "Good morning." "Good evening." The planet's rotation was frantic. A day lasted only a minute. The lamplighter's orders were to light the lamp at sunset and put it out at sunrise, but his world spun too fast. He was bound to a relentless, pointless task. Unlike the others, the prince felt a connection to this man. The lamplighter cared for something outside himself, a tiny, fleeting star in the darkness. His work was beautiful because it was useful, but his devotion was killing him. The danger was blind obedience, following orders without questioning their purpose. The prince wanted to help, but the man was trapped by his own sense of honor. The prince left, sorrowful, the only one he could have made his friend, but the world was too small, too fast. I saw myself in the lamplighter, frantic, exhausted, following the orders of my own survival instinct. The boys' tales were becoming more personal, each one a sharp reflection of my own desperate state. Was my task just as absurd? The fifth planet was 10 times larger, inhabited by a geographer surrounded by maps and charts. He knew nothing of his own planet. He waited for explorers to bring him reports. He dealt in things that were eternal, dismissing the ephemeral, like flowers. His knowledge was vast but hollow, a collection of data without soul. He valued the permanent over the living, breathing beauty of a single rose. The danger was mistaking the map for the territory, intellectualism without experience. The geographer urged the prince to visit Earth based on reputation, not wisdom. The prince sensed the emptiness of the geographer's existence, a life unlived. The geographer's dismissal of the prince's flower struck a deep chord. It was the first time the prince felt regret for the fragile, unique being he'd left behind. The geographer had inadvertently revealed what was truly important. The prince left with a new sense of urgency. He had to find a way back. The stories were no longer just warnings, they were becoming a guide. He spoke of Earth, and of the Serpent. The creature was a glint of gold in the moonlight, a living riddle. "Whomever I touch, I send back to the earth from which he came," the serpent hissed. It was a promise and a threat, a way home, but not to the prince's planet, to the dust. The serpent was death, disguised as a kindness. The prince was not afraid, only intrigued. The serpent offered a final answer, a release from pain and loneliness. The temptation was there, a quick end to his quest. The serpent represented the ultimate shortcut, the allure of giving up. The prince's survival depended on resisting this promise. He had to hold on to the memory of his flower, the purpose of his journey. The serpent was a test of his will, of his love. To accept would be to betray the rose he had sworn to protect. He told me this story on our last night together. My engine was finally fixed. My departure was imminent. His own was too. He spoke of the serpent not with fear, but with solemn understanding. The line between salvation and destruction had become terrifyingly thin. The final moments were a blur of fear and confusion. He walked toward the spot where he had first appeared, his face pale but resolute. "You know, my star, it will be just one of the stars for you," he told me. He was giving me a gift, but it felt like a curse. He was preparing me for his absence. I wanted to hold him back, to tell him the serpent was a lie, but his certainty was absolute. He sat down, waiting. Then a flash of yellow at his ankle. Nothing more. He fell as gently as a tree falls. There was not even any sound. The desert swallowed the moment, leaving only silence. When the sun rose, I searched for him. His body was gone. No trace. Had I imagined it all? Was he just a phantom of my desperate mind? I fixed my plane. I flew away, but I never truly left. The desert is now a sacred place, a place of mystery. I returned to my world of grown-ups, but I carry a secret. I look up at the stars at night and I listen, for the sound of a sheep in a box, for the laughter of a boy with golden hair. Sometimes I think I hear it, a faint echo across the vast empty space. The truth is not something you can see with your eyes. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The case remains open.